Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of our virtual roadshow series. And today we have Aztec Minerals with the CEO, Simon Diakovsky, who wants to give us an insight and also update on the company. Simon, welcome and good morning to Vancouver.
Hey, good afternoon to you, Jochen. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great to have you here on board. That's fantastic for the first time. And we will start in a minute probably. Let's check out all our participants here. And also, as you know me, my name is Jochen Steiger. I'm the CEO and founder of Swiss Resource Capital and also of Commodity TV and Rohstoff TV. And through COVID-19, of course, we were forced to switch from our personal roadshows in whole Europe to do those virtual roadshows. But as we see in the feedback from you as investors, you really like it a lot, and the feedback is very positive. Thanks for joining and participating here, and you will absolutely not regret it because Aztec Minerals is a fantastic company, still small, but also still low in the valuation. And as you know, a low valuation can go all of a sudden to a large valuation. For disclosure reasons, I'm also a shareholder in the company. I participated in the last financing, so that you know that. And I'm holding all my stocks and also all my warrants, of course. And I bought also in the free market because I'm very convinced that Simon and also Bradford Cook, who is behind the company from Endeavour Silver, will do a great job. Also for the disclosure and legal reasons, we are fully complying to the European data security law, and nobody can see each other. And also you cannot see any names nor any emails. When you have questions, please put your questions into the chat function. You find the chat function in the vertical gray bar. It's the third topic from the top. And when you click on chat, then you can ask all your questions you will have during the presentation. And afterwards, we will do a nice Q&A session as you are used to that. Yeah, thank you very much for participating. And I would suggest that we are getting started, and I will move up here the slideshow. And Simon, I would say the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jochen. So Aztec Minerals, we're elephant hunters in North America, focused on a porphyry copper gold discovery that we've made in Sonora, Mexico, and a CRD silver lead zinc gold project in Arizona in the USA. I will be making some forward-looking statements during this presentation, so you're duly warned of that fact. To go over the company, we're focused on making discoveries. Aztec Minerals is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AZT, on the OTC in AZZTF, and also over in Germany. Our business plan is focused on making large discoveries of polymetallic and gold and silver deposits in North America. We're led by an experienced board and management that have a proven track record of creating value through the full cycle of mineral exploration, from discovery through to development and production. We're focused on elephant hunting, so I'll touch on that in a minute here as to what we define that as. And we're honed in on mining-friendly jurisdictions. And as I said, we have two flagship projects, one in Mexico and one in Arizona, in southeastern Arizona in the USA. In Mexico, we've made a recent gold discovery 2 years ago in 2018. It was a virgin gold copper porphyry project, a virgin discovery rather. And every drill that we put into the ground hit mineralization with a headline hole of 0.77 grams per ton over 160 meter width. So a very impressive result. And had we done that today, it would have been a big deal in the market. As Jochen mentioned, we have an attractive valuation. We have 53.7 million shares outstanding, and we're last traded at around 33 cents Canadian on the Toronto Exchange, on the venture where we trade most of our volume, leaving us with a market cap of just under 18 million Canadian dollars. Our share structure for a company that's with two drill projects is relatively tight. We have 35% of the shares closely held, and the company's only been public for about 3 years. In terms of catalysts to create value, we're in a good spot. We have very robust news flow anticipated for both of our projects over the next few months and quarters, and it times well with the new precious and base metal cycle that we've seen in the last 6 months is now well underway. As a highlight at Tombstone, we have two targets. We have a shallow bulk tonnage epithermal gold silver target, And then we have a deeper high-grade CRD polymetallic target. And at Cervantes, we're working towards a joint venture agreement, which will allow us to advance the project onto what we hope will be a very meaningful phase 2 exploration program. Now, elephant hunting. Why are we elephant hunting? So elephant hunting is the search for large ore deposits. And we're looking for these because major mining companies, they need large deposits and discoveries in order to sustain their business, their cash flows, and to replenish their reserves of projects. Now, in recent decades, major mining companies have shifted from actually doing the exploration themselves to allowing junior exploration companies to explore and make discoveries, which is a riskier business, and then to acquire those projects when the discoveries are made and when the projects fit the bill, so to speak, for the larger companies. So therefore, junior companies, they now dominate the exploration scene, and exploration expertise resides with those junior companies like Aztec. And the attraction for investors is that major companies will pay large premiums in order to secure the assets once the discoveries are made, and shareholders of the junior companies can maximize their value. Why are we focused in North America? Well, we think that we're in the best jurisdictions in the world when you combine all of the factors: low political risk, established rule of law and institutions, reasonable tax regimes, well-developed infrastructure, and believe it or not, there's still very good discovery potential in North America, particularly in the United States and Mexico, where we're focused. As I mentioned, Aztec Minerals board and management has a team that we'll talk about later that has a very, very strong record of creating shareholder value. We have what I would still characterize as a very low market cap of under 20 million Canadian dollars. We have two great projects, two flagship projects, if you will. And we have made a recent discovery at our Cervantes project. It's wide open for discovery. And why now? Well, we're fully in the precious metal cycle. It's been a little bit flat over the last couple of months, but relatively speaking, comparing to the last 10 years, it's game on. And base metals, as we say, are in the taillights. They follow. And the majors haven't done too many deals yet, but we're certain to say that they're hungry to make some deals soon. Just to show you where our projects are located, so they're actually relatively close to one another. In Tombstone's in southeast Arizona, just north of the Mexican border. It's about 100 kilometers southeast of Tucson, and it's in the heart of a world-class porphyry copper district. We're also 65 kilometers northeast of the Taylor zinc lead copper CRD discovery made by Arizona Mining in 2015. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's significant. And then Cervantes, our gold copper porphyry project in Sonora, Mexico, it's about 160 kilometers east of Hermosillo, and it's located in a belt of some very well-known operating gold mines, including La Colorada, La India, and Mulatos. And some investors might recognize the Santana project, which is just south of us, which is looking like it will be in production soon. So we're very well located in two, world-renowned mining districts that are relatively close to one another. So Tombstone is a project that we're focused on at the moment. We're drilling there, and highlights of the project include the property being very well located. It's on patented land, so that means it's on private land, mostly, with great infrastructure. It's a historic mining town with complete road access and full services, including power and water. So all intangibles you need for a successful mining project. The district of Tombstone is a historical silver district that produced 32 million ounces of silver from 1878 to 1939 from CRD deposits, as well as from high-grade oxidized silver gold veins. And those were primarily mined in small underground tunnels where old-time miners were mining bonanza grades of silver and lesser grades of gold. Also located on our patented land is the Contention open pit. There's an image of that on this slide. And that is an open pit heap leach mine that operated from about 1980 to 1985 at a rate of around 3,000 tons per day. So that was targeting shallow epithermal mineralization. And we like the project because of the epithermal potential. And also we have numerous targets outside of the pit. And we're drilling there right now, which I will touch on in this slide here, just to give you an idea of how big the project is. We're at about 800 acres now. We've recently increased the claim size by buying some land and by staking some land. So we're really happy with what we're seeing. So we've been making it a little bit bigger and picking up some more targets along the way. And you'll notice all those little red dots are a little hard to see, but those are all historic small underground mines. And then the blue lines running north-south represent the contention vein and the contention pit, which is the focus of our drilling currently. I've mentioned that we're drilling right now. We're in the middle of a 20-hole drill program, and it's concentrated along the contention structure. So we're drilling in 3 spoke patterns, 4 holes. You can see on the map there's a central spoke pattern. So we had results out from that just a few weeks ago. And then we drilled in the north. We put 4 holes in there. We have results pending from that. So that's something investors will look forward to. And then about 400 or 500 meters south of the central spoke, we're currently drilling. So the drill's actually spinning right now. We're putting 4 holes in there. And then we're going to be testing some targets abroad. So just to the west of that contention open pit, we are testing some targets there in an area of historic mining. So very exciting times for us. And it's a great time to be showing the story, given that we're actually drilling right now. So I mentioned that we put out some results a couple weeks ago. I think it was late September the 29th, so almost a month ago now. And we were really pleased. So we are confirming some historic drilling that was done by a junior company in the early 1990s. They were really limited to the north and center of the pit. So we're going all the way up and down the structure, confirming their drilling. And I note that their drilling, typically the holes only went down to about 80 meters depth. So we're going quite a bit deeper and testing the whole extent of the structure. So highlights from our drilling, our first round of our first 4 holes was a high grade section in hole 2. So 13 meters or almost 14 meters of 3.18 grams of gold and 136 grams of silver, or 4.88 grams of gold equivalent. And then a bulk tonnage hit that we had. So this is a low grade hit of 77.77 meters of 0.94 grams gold and 42 grams silver. So in the world of low grade bulk tonnage heap leaching, that's actually quite attractive. Over 1.5 grams of gold equivalent there. And I note that those intersections started very shallow, and that's actually a picture of the setup there that we had in the center of the pit. So it's a very, very positive sign for us that the material underneath the bottom of the pit floor is mineralized with, what looks to be the start of some economic grades. So very exciting for us. As I mentioned, the 4 holes were drilled in a spoke pattern. So we're drilling the center, north, and south. And then, if we're successful, we'll look to infill that in a phase 2 program. I note that all 4 holes hit extensive gold and silver mineralization. So it extends the zone to depth and along strike and below the pit. And we also note that all 4 holes did intersect old mine workings that likely date back to the late 1800s. So that's good. That's a good sign. That means that the old timers were mining bonanza grades, typically silver that they could see, and they mined that out. But they've left a lot of really good material that could possibly be run through a heap leach. Well, in fact, it was in the 1980s in what was a different gold pricing environment. So the key takeaways from our first 4 holes is that, it is an open pit heap leach style of deposit that we're targeting. It was a heap leach mine, so, that's not unknown. A very key point to make on that process is that a typical heap leach in the area will make money in this environment at a grade of 0.4 to 0.6 grams per ton gold. So, the 1.6 grams that we drilled over 80 meters, that's really, that's almost triple what the typical mine would be running in this area. It's almost to be considered on the higher end grade of a heap leach. And we note that the open pit heap leach that existed at Tombstone operated in the 80s. The early 80s was a different precious metal cycle. It was a high in their day, but compared to now, it was a much, much lower price. And We also would note that the open pit mine that was developed in the 80s, it was built basically with no exploration drilling. So this is very interesting to us. What they instead did was they just went into the tunnels, they sampled some of the walls, and they did some trenching from surface, and then they went for it and they started mining. So we're, you know, really the second group to come in with a more systematic drilling approach to doing so. And there's still very good high-grade gold potential in the pit walls, and Aztec has sampled up to 23.5 grams gold and over 3,000 grams of silver in those pit walls. And as I mentioned, the central spoke drilling did confirm some historic drilling, which I'll reference in a subsequent slide. The 20-hole drill program, again, it's 3,000 meters. It is ongoing. We're through about 60% of the drilling now. And investors can look forward to seeing the results from that drilling over the coming weeks, specifically from the North Spoke, which is about 300 meters north of where we had the first hole. So that's something to look forward to. Just to show you a cross section of hole 2 and hole 4 from our first 4 results, you can see that the bulk of the mineralization that we drilled is within the first 50 meters of the holes. And then extends beyond that to 100 meters down. And that's, you know, that's significant because it's shallow. And that always helps economics for any mining operation to have the best mineralization closest to the surface. In terms of where we're located, so another key feature about Tombstone is its proximity to the Taylor deposit. And the Taylor deposit, we note, is the closest major discovery to Tombstone. And to remind investors, so Taylor is a CRD deposit. It's now known to be one of the largest zinc primary deposits in the world at over 100 million tons of zinc, zinc equivalent. And it was discovered by drilling underneath the past producing silver district called Hermosa. So similar target to Tombstone. And this discovery was made in 2015. And over the course of 3 years, it was developed and attracted the interest of a large mining company out of Australia called South32. They ended up investing $110 million, and then eventually made a cash offer to buy the whole company. So we are the closest past producing silver district to Taylor. And we do have CRD buried targets that we are going to be drilling early in the new year once we're done our initial 3,000 meter RC program. And the reason that we're excited to drill the CRD targets at Tombstone is threefold, really. It's one, the general geology and the similarities to the Hermosa district. 2, it is the geophysical survey that Aztec completed in the spring that we've interpreted, and we've found some buried targets. And 3, we have some deep drilling results from a past operator of the project that was limited to the north of the property. And it did, in fact, intersect some very high grades of polymetallic mineralization. So we'll have an example of that in a subsequent slide so investors can understand why we are keen to test that target that was drilled previously. And as well as further south, we have a giant kind of a baseball-sized target in the magenta color there that's buried about 600 meters below the surface. So this is below the open pit, and it's going to require about a 750 meter hole to test. And we're basically pre-collaring the hole. So we're going about a third of the way down in this current RC program, and then we will be drilling this this hole with the core drill in the first quarter and testing to see what's in that target. And we think that it might represent the potential for CRD massive sulfides, as it's a moderate to strong conductor in that depth slice that we've produced in our survey. And just to highlight what happens, or what could happen if you do find a CRD deposit in Arizona under a past producing silver district, shareholders, at least in the case of Arizona Mining as an illustrative example, did very well over the 3-year period from discovery through to the buyout. So they did very well, and we hope to find something similar, hopefully. In terms of the historic drilling, so the top table here just highlights some of the drilling in the shallow targets. So as you can see, you know, the operator USMX in the early 90s, they drilled shorter holes, but they were hitting good heap leachable grades that we're now confirming highlights of their drilling was about 70 meters, almost 70 meters of 1.42 gold and 28.6 silver. But really on this slide, I'll draw your attention to hole T8. And this is a deeper target, the CRD target that I mentioned in the previous slide, where another mining company drilled, again, limited to the north of our property, but they hit 7 meters of 0.06 gold, 32 grams silver, 0.6 copper, and a combined 9.1% lead zinc, which is a very high grade to be finding in a CRD massive sulfide environment. So we are extremely excited to be testing that once we have those holes pre-collared and we're done with our phase 1 program in the open pit. So as I mentioned, our next steps are to complete the 20-hole, 3,000-meter program. There's a picture of our chairman at the project a couple of years back.
And we know him really well.
yes, I know. He's excited about the project here. And in the first quarter, we'll be testing those deep targets, that big baseball-style target that could represent Taylor-style massive sulfide replacement mineralization. So that's Tombstone. And I will now touch on Cervantes, which is our, if you will, our second flagship project, which is in Mexico, in Sonora State. We're not working on it right now, so I'll be a little bit quicker through this, but we will hopefully be working on it in 2021. Cervantes is a large, well-located property, almost 3,700 hectares, and it is also with good road access, primarily on private land with water. It's a little bit more difficult to get to than Tombstone. It's about a 4-hour drive from Hermosillo on back roads. It has multiple prospective zones. You can see some of them in the image there. The California target has been identified by a very large golden soil anomaly that goes about 900 meters across by 600 meters, averaging almost a half gram of gold. The whole area is underlain by some very interesting geophysical anomalies. A road cut through the property has actually identified a 222-meter corridor of almost a half gram of gold as well. And as I mentioned in the introduction, Aztec did drill this property in 2018, actually 2017-18, an extensive program, and hit gold on every single hole. So the highlight hole was 160 meters width of 0.77 grams of gold. So, well over that heap leach benchmark. And mineralization is still open at depth and laterally. So something that we can't wait to get drilling on again. And we've done some preliminary metallurgical testing on it, which is important for a heap leach. And the testing to date has shown very good recoveries between 75 and 87%. As I mentioned, the target's still wide open. And the main target, the big prize, the main copper gold sulfide target, hasn't been drilled yet. So there's huge upside remaining on this project. And how it's structured is it was, Aztec had an option to earn a 65% interest from a company called Kootenay Silver. And Aztec has now met the terms and obligations of that option. And we've been working diligently with Kootenay to formalize our joint venture. So that's another news release that investors hopefully can see soon, is that should be wrapped up in the next, in the next few weeks or months. And that'll put us in a great position to, with our partners, to work on the project next year, where we're 35% partners, Aztec holding 65, Kootenay 35, and lightening the burden on the cash spend and having a great team to work with on the project over the next year. And we'll be planning what should be a significant phase 2 drill program of reverse circulation and possibly some core drilling. But again, we have to talk to our partners and formalize the joint venture first. This just gives you, this slide here gives an idea of how extensive the target zones are. So there's been fairly limited soil sampling, but the areas that have had the strongest response have in fact yielded a discovery. Here's a slide of some geophysical work that magnetics that's guiding some of our targeting. I don't want to get too technical, so I'll just buzz through these. This is an interesting one. This is an IP survey that shows in the top left slide, it shows the oxide zone that we've drilled that has low chargeability as the copper has been leached out and the gold remains. And then on the top right hand corner, you can see at 500 meters, so quite a bit deeper down than this image to the left, there's a strong chargeability anomaly, and that might represent sulfide mineralization. We don't know because we haven't drilled it yet, but that's going to be part of our next step. So again, it's got great upside from that perspective as well. Here's an idea to show you where all of our drilling was in 2018, and all of those holes hit heap leachable grades. And as you can see from the depiction there, it's wide open in all the directions. So the next round of drilling will be very exciting for investors and for the market to see what we've got. And just to summarize some of the drilling that we did in 2018, so the highlight hole was 160 meters of 0.77 grams gold, and it included an 80-meter section of over a gram. And just down the list, you can see, almost 140 meters of 0.7, 20 meters of over 2 grams, very low copper, which is good for heap leaching in the oxide zone. 118 meters of 0.63, 170 meters of 0.4. So as you can see, consistent heap leachable grades in the oxide zone. It's down to about 150 meters of depth, and it's open laterally. And again, as I mentioned earlier, metallurgy always comes into question, and so far so good. Preliminary tests with recoveries of between 85 and 87% for the gold, dropping off in the sulfide group. Excuse me. So our next steps on Cervantes, as I mentioned, it is to finalize our joint venture agreement with Kootenay Silver. And as you know, just to clarify, the reason we haven't talked too much about Cervantes over the last year is because we've been working hard to get this done. We should have it done soon. Next work it'll be quickly to do some mapping and sampling to really hone in on the new targets. And then we'll be working with Kootenay to design a larger phase 2 drill program to expand that California discovery, test at depth, and to test some new targets to make some new discoveries, hopefully. Near-term catalysts at a corporate level, more broadly speaking. So we'll have those drill results from Tombstone that we're drilling right now. They'll be rolling in. The North Spoke will have results soon, hopefully. Then we'll have results from the South Spoke, hopefully in November. And then some other targets to the west that we're drilling will also be out before the end of the year. So really good catalyst to take us through to 2021. And again, it's Cervantes. We should have that joint venture finished soon. And then into the second half of 2021, we'll continue drilling at Tombstone with our phase 1 core drilling program. So that's to test that Taylor style target or those targets that we have. And at Cervantes, we'll be reviewing our strategy and designing a substantial phase 2 program. So that's it in a nutshell. That's a lot of work. And then potentially phase 2 drilling at Tombstone, depending on the results of our current drilling, which, as I mentioned, has been very good. So that would be something that we'll look to do as well. Capital structure, always important for a junior company. We've kept it tight. Just over 50 million out right now, trading at 33 cents a share. Fully diluted, we're at about 72 million. Insiders hold a large stake in the company of over 12%. We have a strategic investor in Core Mining. They hold about 4 or 5% of the company. And then we have a group of investors that have been with the deal since its inception, and they hold about 20%. Cash-wise, we're doing well. We raised money in the summer, and we've kept most of it. We're spending it judiciously as we're drilling at Tombstone, and we have about $2.5 million right now against our $17 million market cap, leaves us with an enterprise value of about 15 million Canadian dollars. Management directors, so as Jochen mentioned, our chairman is Brad Cook. He is the founder of Aztec, and he's better known as the founder of Endeavour Silver and the current CEO. So he is also our largest shareholder, and he's had an illustrious career of making discoveries, developing mines. He's been in the game for 43 years. Joey Wilkins, he is our VP of Exploration and Chief Geologist. So he's actually down in Arizona. That's where he lives, and he's been with a number of mining companies and made discoveries, including our one at Cervantes. So he's leading the charge in making new discoveries for us and building on that one in Mexico at Cervantes and again at Tombstone. And he was 24 years with Rio Tinto Exploration. On the board, a couple of notables. Mark Rebliati, recently inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. He is a renowned geologist, needless to say, and he's managed several major porphyry discoveries for the Hunter Dickinson Group. And Pat Veris, he is credited with a couple of very large M&A exits subsequent to discoveries, including Far West Mining in 2012, I believe. So, and the rest of the board is rounded out with excellent financial people. So we've really got a good mix of solid decades-long experience. Throughout the cycle, discoveries, operating mines, selling companies, capital markets, technical expertise, and financial expertise. So it's a great team to be working with and working together to make shareholders money on Aztec. So just to summarize the presentation, like I mentioned, we have a very experienced board and management, a very small market cap, tightly held structure, so good upside there. We have two flagship projects, both in mining-friendly jurisdictions, one in Sonora, Mexico, one in Arizona. We're currently drilling shallow targets, epithermal gold, silver targets around a past-producing open pit. We've made a discovery already at Cervantes. Again, the highlight, 160 meters of 0.77 grams gold, wide open for expansion. And we've got a juicy target at Tombstone buried below the deposit. So all in all, I think it's a compelling investment proposition for your viewers, and we invite them to jump on the stagecoach here that's in Tombstone.
Fantastic, Simon. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation, and I know why I'm a happy shareholder. So let's have a look here. There is a first question from a fund manager in Munich. The grades decline with the depths, which was slide 12. What is the geological explanation for this, or is that the pipeline of carbonate replacement?
So that is a good question that I would defer to our VPX on, but I'll answer it in this way. For the economics of reopening a heap leach mine, we're definitely more concerned with what's near surface. So that if we were to, or if a company were to start mining that pit again, that would be a very attractive feature for them, as you obviously process that material first, and it improves the economics at the initial stages of mining. So that's how I'll answer that, and I'd be happy to follow up with the more technical potential reasons for the lithologies with our VPX.
Okay, no problem. So I can maybe connect you guys directly.
Yeah,
then.
Please do.
Yeah, that would be good. Super. Ladies and gentlemen, please post your questions into the chat. The chat is open and would be happy to see some more questions here. Then what do we have here? Yeah, this is also one of my questions. Where do you see the company in 36 months from here?
36 months. Well, that is
taken over by Endeavour Silver.
Who knows who will own it, but I'll go for 12 months. Okay, so 36 months is a little bit far out, but I think in 12 months we will be working on two projects, and we hope to be engaged in multiple drilling programs. And that's what I'm most excited about, is really the drilling next year. I mean, I'm excited about what we're doing now, but hopefully we're going full tilt on both projects, and that's when we'll have news flow all the time, and it times well with a better gold price environment. I mean, we're at 1900 now. A lot of people are bullish for next year, and when you have interest coming into the sector and you're drilling, that's really the best combination to get a higher value for your company. So I'll stick, unfortunately, with the 12-month target. Hopefully in 36 months, maybe the mines are operated by someone else, but that really we only have visibility into our kind of our 12-month plan.
Okay, super. Before we dive a little bit deeper into the project, the share price was down recently. Of course, we saw a correction in gold and silver. That's, of course, one of the reasons all share prices went down a little bit, which is quite normal after such a rise. But if I am correct, you have extended 2 times some warrants from old financings, and I think they are slowly but surely due, right? So is this maybe a reason?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And that is personally what I think has driven the share price a little bit lower. So there were some warrants issued about 5 years ago to investors that came into the deal before the IPO, and they were extended twice, and they were priced at about 25 cents. So there was about 2.5 million warrants, and if you look at our trading over the last few weeks, we've traded about a couple million shares. So I'll note that they expire tomorrow, and I think that probably all of any selling that has come from those is over. So that's that's a good point, and I think that's driving the weakness over the last month, because it's really surprising. We put out results 3 weeks ago, and they were excellent. And for anybody that's familiar with what kind of grade you need to run a heap leach mine in Mexico or Arizona, we're 3 times better than that in that one hole. So I think it's a real opportunity here for investors that understand that we are knocking it out of the park on the drilling, and the share price weakness, we hope, is temporary and largely driven by that, as you mentioned, by that warrant overhang that is now over as of tomorrow.
So that would mean you get money into the bank.
Yeah, and that's right. So we've generated about 600,000 from that. So that that also lightens the pressure to do a financing. So we're cashed up to do all the work that we have planned right now. So investors don't have to worry about a financing overhang in the near term.
Super, that's great. Arizona, let's start with Tombstone and also with the contention pit. Question from my side is, what is, let's say, the permitting path in Arizona? Is it as long as like in Nevada, for example, where it is at least a 30 months to 36 months permitting path, or can you do it faster? And also, what is going on maybe with some water issues there?
Yeah, so the permitting in the United States, it's largely driven by what kind of land you're on. So, I don't know if the Nevada-Arizona comparison is fair, because some of those projects that have longer permitting timelines might be on public land, on Forest Service land or Bureau of Land Management. And that's an advantage to the Tombstone project, because it is largely, and the parts that we're interested are all on private land. So the permitting on private land is much faster than on public land. And in terms of water, there's good access to water. We're right next to a town, so a deal would have to be made to secure the water, but there's no issues of constructing pipelines or anything like that would be overly costly to the project. And we note that the mine did operate for 5 years, and the town was already there. So it's a very mining friendly town. It's a small town. It's driven by tourism. And actually it's a split between the old Western tourism from the gunfight at the OK Corral that everyone knows about, but also mining tourism. You can go in there into an old mine called the Goodenough Mine, and many tourists have actually gone down the steps there and then looked at the old mine. So and many of the people in the town used to work at the mine, so they're fully supportive of mining, to the best of my knowledge. And in that sense, we're at a huge advantage over other projects, even in the U.S., just given our proximity to mining-friendly town and private land.
Okay. As you have neighbors like Alamos, Agnico Eagle, South 32, we saw that $1.8 billion takeover. And you are very close to everything, right? So
Yes.
What would you consider Tombstone, saying the contention pit, as a critical size that you are of interest for those companies? Because normally we say, they are taking over a production of at least, the production has at least to be at, let's say, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 ounces gold, for example, or gold equivalent per year.
Yeah, so good question. I can't speak for their strategies, but in Mexico, you can compare the mines that we mentioned, Mulatos and La India, La Colorada, and the Cervantes project. We've got our work cut out for us to show how big it is, but you saw on the map, it's a large area and it's wide open. So that one certainly could be in a comparable range. Obviously, it needs to be drilled and proven, but that asset, I think, might be of interest to a company that's operating in the area, certainly. And then Tombstone's a little bit different. I mean, obviously, we've got the contention heap leach, and that would be likely a little bit smaller in terms of heap leaching than Cervantes. But again, given the ease of permitting in that part of the world on private land, given some other companies that are mining. There's a company called Northern Vertex. I think they're mining about 50,000 ounces a year. That certainly could be of interest to larger companies to either consolidate the area or run a smaller mine. I mean, you'd make a lot of money mining that size of a pit at $1,900 gold, and then the deep targets are unique in themselves. They would likely be more of interest to a base metals miner, and we've had a couple of inbounds from base metals miners that are interested to see what we come up with, right? So there's lots of different options, and Tombstone actually is unique in that it would have a couple of different potential parties that would be interested in it, depending on what we find at depth.
Okay, super. Let's talk about your pit, or about the contention pit. You said that you found also high grade in the pit walls. To me, they looked a little bit steep. Yeah. So would that mean that you are by now pursuing more a scenario of, let's say, to go again deeper in the open pit mine, maybe to widen the pit and not to do the walls that steep, and maybe you find some more ore in the walls even by digging them out? And would that mean also that there is maybe for the future then an underground scenario?
Well, the pit, as you can see, the wall looks steep, but it's actually relatively shallow. They didn't go that deep into it, so I can't really speak to what the engineers will draw up.
This is just generally speaking, of course.
Yeah. But like, you're right, they could be pushed back, the walls, and then dug down deeper. So there's both of those scenarios remain on the table. Mining the stuff in the walls and at depth. And that's what we're proving with this drill program, and particularly at depth. I mean, that's more important, to go a little bit deeper and to have some high grade gold in there. And you saw in hole 2, the shallow stuff was pretty high grade. It was getting close to that 4 or 5 gram range. So again, that's how I'd answer that. And then in terms of the buried targets, those would likely be mined, if there was a deposit there, would be mined underground. It would be underneath that pit. So it's interesting. There's a number of ways it might go, and we'll find out soon.
Okay, super. As you still have a lot to drill results.
I lost the volume, Jochen.
You lost the volume? Can you hear me? Does that work? Maybe your earphones are off. Put them off. Now better? Is it now working? So maybe your battery is done.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I got you back. Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, as you are drilling already a lot of holes, you have drilled a lot of holes, and you are still doing that. The holes you have presented so far, the results, have they ended in mineralization? Do you think if you go, let's say, 100, 200, 300 meters deeper, or let's say if you do a deep hole, like 500, 800 meters, do you think there's more to come up?
Yeah, they have. So they've been mineralized the entire way down the hole, some of them, and we are drilling some deeper holes. And the challenge is really with RC drilling is we're getting into some tunnels, right? So it's good and bad. The tunnels are good because it means that somebody was mining high grade there, very high grade before, but they're bad because they can complicate drilling a little bit. So one thing we might do, and we're looking into, is actually going and mapping the tunnels so that we can miss some of them when we're drilling in subsequent rounds. But yeah, you're certainly right. In the phase 2 drill program, we would plan to drill deeper and really see the full extent of the mineralization in the shallow epithermal system there.
Fantastic. So how is there's an investor asking, how is the local support? And I would pose that question into Arizona and Mexico.
So the local support is good in both. As I mentioned, Tombstone, it's a tourist town that is supported by the mining industry and has a mine that they've seen in their backyard since the town existed. So no issues there. And then the part of Mexico we're in, you can see on the map there, many very well-known large mines are operating. So that's a huge source of employment in both areas for locals, and they would be more than happy to see dozens of high-paying jobs come out of this, right? So it's not an area that's at all hostile to mining. They're both, they've long histories of mining, and really that's why we're working there. Like as I mentioned, low political risk is key for Aztec, and those are two jurisdictions that we've identified as being of low risk.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, that's great. Question before we move shortly to Cervantes, question on the capital side. Can you give us a little bit more of an idea? The 35% closely held. We saw management. We saw also Coeur Mining. By the way, how happened Coeur Mining? Was that like a transaction with projects?
Yeah, they wanted to participate in Cervantes, and before the company went public, they elected to. Instead of having them participate on the project, they were invited to join the IPO. So they became a 9.9% shareholder at the IPO, and they've since been diluted down to about 5%. So that's how they got involved. They like Cervantes, and they're still sitting there with a couple of million shares. And sorry, what was the other question?
Yes, and the other question is, who else are your major large shareholders? Let's call it that, aside the management.
So it's Coeur, and then there's some European and North American investors that have been, in each round of financing that continue to support the deal, that maintain their position. So private investors. We're not quite there with institutional investors yet, but I think once we start getting into resource drilling, that's when those big, well-known investors start to really come in, and that's a good sign for any retail investors that are in right now, because when they come in pretty heavy, and they're not as concerned with the day-to-day share price. So anybody that's in before them, if they like what they see, they can usually participate in the equity value re-rating. So that's a good question, actually.
Okay, super. Yeah, I mean, you should never be too much concerned about day-to-day share prices, because when you invest, you should have a plan and a price target for sure. And my price target is way above the $1.50, $2 mark. That's also for sure. It looks to me like that Arizona was for 2020, let's say, more in the focus. Now, let's hope by, let's say, year end, you have closed the joint venture for Cervantes, and could be then Mexico more on the focus for next year? Or would you say, no, we rate both projects then equal and we put full throttle down with exploration?
I'd say full throttle on both, right? It's not, like we're still optioning. We're going to form a 75% joint venture on Tombstone, and we had a little bit of work commitment left. So once we're done to 3,000 meters, then we'll have vested our 75% interest. So we'll have another joint venture, and we'd really like what we're seeing. So I think it would be foolish to say that Cervantes would replace Tombstone as the company's focus. I think it would be two great projects, and two great projects in a great gold environment. That's the ideal scenario. So no, they'll be, I'd say, equal focus, and we'll see how it all plays out over the next year, but that's certainly our intention right now.
Fantastic. As copper rose today again significantly, we are almost approaching $3.10 per pound. I saw an hour ago, which I love to see because I'm a copper bull as well as a gold and silver bull, of course. We saw that you have at Cervantes great values of gold, silver, and copper. How important would you rate copper as a byproduct for the future?
Well, I think it would be, obviously, it would be a nice discovery to make. In the gold copper porphyry system that maybe is driving the oxide cap, but for now we're more than happy with the oxide gold that we've got at surface. So that would be a nice bonus, but I think just given the lateral extent of the oxide zone and the depth that we've already drilled, that in itself suggests it could be a standalone operation, and then anything found at depth would be a bonus and would make it a lot bigger and more valuable. But we've got to focus on, we're still a small company with limited resources, so we've got to attack this thing in a systematic manner. So the next round of drilling at Cervantes could be infilling and then testing those deeper targets. So both great catalysts to be looking forward to. Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Last question from my side. We saw you have $2.5 million in cash, and now, if I'm correct, you get approximately $600,000 from the warrant exercise. So let's say you have approximately $3 million in the bank, and that's definitely enough for this year and next year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depending on the success of the drill program, if we want to ramp it up in a big way, I mean, it would require some more funding. So, I mean, it's never say never on that, but I'd say for the next 3 quarters, we've got sufficient capital to execute on a number of the milestones that we've outlined.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, if you have that success, which I really hope for, then this is a luxury problem, and I would call it positive dilution.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta give an opportunity for new people to get involved, right?
Exactly, but at a higher share price, please. Super. So let me check here again. That looks all good. Yep, there is nothing missing. Perfect. Then let me look shortly on my side here. Yep, that's okay. We have done that. That is all answered. Fantastic. We are through it. Thank you very much, Simon. That was fantastic. First time here on Commodity TV, and I'm pretty sure I see you more often than with all those hopefully good news results coming up. And we should do then an update, let's say, by the end of November, because then you have hopefully sufficient news, and hopefully by that you have the joint venture. And then I would say you got to rock it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak to all your listeners, and apologies for that technical glitch earlier, but I look forward to giving everyone an update in the future here.
Perfect. Simon, thank you very much. All the best to Vancouver, and enjoy your day.
Same to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was our virtual roadshow with Aztec Minerals and Simon Diakovsky. And yeah, you heard it. Small company, just under 20 million Canadian dollars market cap, but a lot of potential. And as you know, from 20 million to 100 million is much easier than from 1 billion to 2 billion. And so I would really suggest that you have a close look and do your due diligence on the company. I'm a shareholder. I'm a happy shareholder, and I will stick with the company because I see the potential in here, both in Arizona and in Mexico. And I really hope that the joint venture with Kootenay works, because that would be a big milestone for the company. Also, I like the warrant exercise that brings cash into the bank of the company. $3 million are in there, and they are drilling and drilling. And let's see how the drill results will look like. So far, they were fantastic. A lot of potential. Thanks for watching us. Bye-bye to Vancouver. All the best. And hopefully I see you all next week, 5 o'clock on Tuesday. And then we will have Maple Gold. All the best. Thank you very much. And bye-bye from Switzerland.